But in the meantime, I think some of the major bits of the story are getting covered by CoffeeZilla quite well on his Voidzilla channel. So I was hoping to watch this.
It gets worse from here. We're going back into the 3 million documents. So far, we mostly covered how billionaires lied about their relationship with Epstein and or got blackmailed in the drafts, eventually killing their marriage. We talked about Howard Lutnick, how he lied about meeting Epstein, although he
Did you see there was an interview with Bill Gates' wife recently, like in the past few days, where they asked her about these revelations in the files. And to me, watching her talk, she doesn't outright confirm anything. But the way she says it, the resignation in her voice, it's like she fully believes that, that Bill Gates is, do you know what I'm saying? It's like, and she's pretty fucking close to him and was married to him at this time. So based on the way she said it, is like, that actually was so damning for me because, it's tough. It's just tough. It's tough to know 100%. You don't get a fucking video. You don't get a picture. But that to me is like guilty. That really has flipped my switch over to being like, if his wife of that many years, lockstep that he has some shadiness with Epstein, then there it is. That's telling. That's like,
still denies this. And we also talked about some horrible accusations against Trump and Bill Clinton, although we were clear that they are unverified. Now, some people have responded to the release, like Elon Musk, saying that no one fought harder for the full release of the Epstein Files than I did. Ironically, he claims that he knew that the playbook of the far left propagandists and legacy media is admit nothing, deny everything, and making counter accusations, saying he had never set foot on Epstein's creepy island or attended party.
Yeah, he's probably going to say this right now, but that is exactly what Elon Musk is doing all day, every minute since the release of the files. All day, every day, 40, 50 tweets a day. All he's doing is saying, I have completely not been involved in the files. This fully exonerates me. And by the way, have you seen Reid Hoffman? Reid Hoffman is definitely guilty. It's like insane. It's like he's doing.
Despite the fact we saw last time that Elon was asking to be invited to the party, what day and night would be the wildest party on your island? Nevertheless, I think it's an interesting point. The playbook, as we get into this much darker side of the 3.5 million files, you're going to notice this trend is true, that everyone we're going to talk about, basically they admit nothing, they deny everything, and then they usually make counter accusations against other people in the files. Almost no one has faced any kind of consequences for this whole thing, leading me to...
Pause. Nobody in America. Honestly, a lot of... Oh, he's going to say this. Fuck, dude. All right, fine. Yeah, like people, there's like 6 different people all over in Europe that have had to resign from powerful positions.
To wonder, why is it that it seems like really only in the rest of the world has anyone faced anything? I mean, you've got the former Prince Andrew losing his title. You've got the Slovakia National Security Advisor resigning over the Epstein links. But in America, I'm really hard-pressed to think of anyone who has actually faced any kind of accountability. I think Larry Summers stepped back voluntarily. But other than that, it's hard to think of anyone who's faced any kind of justice. In fact, arguably, Ghislaine Maxwell's life is better than it was previously since these Epstein files.
Anyway, has he showed the Thomas Massie videos in here? Because I gotta say, like I've said, despite not agreeing with Thomas Massie on, abortion and guns, he has been incredible around the Epstein files, like truly incredible. And I would like to show him and Ro Khanna have worked together, bipartisan. And I think this speech right here, this is the one I wanted to show.
It's wrong. Do not let the Senate muck this bill up. And if you're a party to that in the Senate, you are part of this cover-up that we are trying to expose. I am sorry if one of your billionaire donors is going to get embarrassed because he went to Rape Island. That is what they have coming. In fact, they need to be on the other side of bars, a lot of them. Some of them will be embarrassed, but some of them need to go to prison, and the survivors know that. So how will we know if this bill has been successful? We will know when there are men, rich men in handcuffs being perp-walked to the jail. And until then, this is still a cover-up.
That says it all. That's 100% true. At the end of the day, nobody is going to feel like this has been... I mean, we have Trump out there saying it's time to turn the page on the Epstein files. That's what he said like 2 days ago. He's like, all right, the new 3 million are out. It's all over now. It's time to turn the page. What the fuck are you talking about? What the fuck are you, this has just opened Pandora's box of more. People are more enraged than ever. You have the AG was saying, That's it? There's going to be no more convictions? Yeah, Deputy AG Todd Blanche. Where is his statement? You got Todd Blanche saying...
Is there any chance...
He said two things. One of them was fucking crazy. This is on Fox. All right. This is a truly crazy thing to say. It's like the biggest misread of the room I can imagine.
That any of these individuals who partied with Epstein and engaged in, relations with minors will be prosecuted?
Well,
Any
look,
chance?
I'll never say no, and we will always investigate any evidence of misconduct. But as you know, it is not a crime to party with Mr. Epstein, and so as horrible as it's not a crime to email with Mr. Epstein. And some of these men may have done horrible things, and if we have evidence that allows us to prosecute them, you better believe we will. But it's also the kind of thing that the American people need to understand, that it isn't a crime to party with Mr. Epstein. It isn't
double down.
It looked like that's all that was going on some of those photos. I mean, if the photos could speak, some of them look pretty bad.
That's right. And unfortunately, photos can't speak. And so we need witnesses and we need
Are there
evidence.
videotapes that you all have? Or well, some of the people we saw on camera?
I would like to see his answer to that. But, like... it's just such a misread of the situation. American people are not trying to hang somebody who may have been at a fucking party somewhere that Epstein happened to be at. They are talking specifically about the depraved child sex parties on his island that you have a lot of evidence leading towards, that you are saying there's going to be no further investigations or convictions around. It's like a deliberate misread. It's so fucked.
I'm our child.
By the way, another statement of his about what was not included in the files that was released.
Any depiction of CSAM or child pornography was obviously excluded. Anything that would jeopardize an active federal investigation. And finally, anything that depicts or contain images of death, physical abuse, or injury, also not produced.
Which means you have them. Which means when you have those things and you are telling the public, hey, it's not a crime to party with Epstein, we're not gonna do any more convictions, it sounds fucking insane. It sounds, it's truly diabolical. So, I don't know. This whole thing is just another disaster on top of disasters, bro. So anyway, back to the video. Let's watch it. I'm sure copies will have some of this in there too. This might be crazy, but something fishy's going on here. All I can do is laugh. Yeah, I don't know. It's such an insult, bro. It's such an insult. So anyway, shout out to Rokana and Thomas Massey. They have been they're the reason. Those two are the reason that we have these files we have now. Their tireless push to round up votes that got this thing passed, that got Trump to have to sign it, that got us to get some things out. They did a fucking incredible job. It is like a heroic thing to do. And it's pretty fucked that there is a whole ton of money combined with Trump tweeting nonstop to try and get Massey out of his seat.
Have dropped. And what's crazy about this is that we know that the government story is false. Remember, the FBI documents showed they had 10 co-conspirators they were investigating. We also got an old draft of an indictment where they had several co-defendants with Epstein. Now, of course, we know these were never ultimately charged. This was back in 2005, but just imagine all the way back in 2005, where these charges are from, we already had evidence that Epstein was not working alone, and of course he's not. But now we're gonna talk a little bit about how the scheme operated. Now, to be clear, we're gonna talk in a second about the laundering of Epstein's reputation, the people who protected him this whole time. But right now, I wanna talk about how Epstein got some of these girls in the first place, because the Epstein Files provide an interesting look behind the curtains. Obviously, we know Ghislaine Maxwell was helping, whether it be procure the girls, talk them into stuff. But now we have emails of a different side of the scheme. It says, yesterday I spoke to Daniel Syed, who Jean-Luc Brunel describes as a scout or recruiter of girls or women for Jeffrey Epstein. Attached to this incoming email from Brunel is the contact information he has for Syed. And then they blacked out his number.
He died in prison, like I says, but Jean-Luc Brunel died in prison. Suspiciously. Interesting.
Number and email. But digging into Jeffrey's emails with Daniel shows that he was constantly sending him links to girls. It shows Jeffrey Epstein paying Daniel 3,000 euros, which, to be clear, was the amount that was agreed to by Jean-Luc Brunel. Quote, Dominique, we will pay him 3,000 euros each month for scouting for a 6-month period. On all models we will get him, we will pay him 5% commission on their earnings. Imagine it's like baseball or it's like basketball. You're scouting for, I hate to use the word talent, but that's really what this guy was doing. He was going around the globe trying to find people for Jeffrey Epstein and Jean-Luc Brunel. According to one lawsuit, Epstein trafficked a Jane Doe to Jean-Luc Brunel many times. It describes their operation as this. Many of the girls came from poor countries or impoverished backgrounds. He lured them in with a promise of making good money. Quote, Brunel has been a model scout for various modeling agencies for many years, and he was apparently able to get U.S. passports for young girls to work as models, eventually, of course, being sent to Jeffrey Epstein. Now, it should be noted that Jean-Luc Brunel himself died in prison by hanging, and that's while he was being accused of horrible crimes related to trafficking and minors. So this guy is not a good guy. He was part of the op, along with Daniel Syed, who was also scouting on behalf of Epstein and Jean-Luc Brunel. They had their agreement. Here's a sample of how this would work. Jeffrey Epstein asked him to take a full body shot of someone. Daniel Syed says, now she is really skinny, I will do Polaroid. Jeffrey Epstein asks for a copy of her passport and then asks, how many tickets do you want for Woody, meaning Woody Allen? He says 2. Okay, thank you. Full body if possible. And then Jeffrey Epstein says, doesn't look too happy. Comments on her body, and then he says she is very sweet. I'll skip a few of the sordid details here. They comment about her body extensively, and then Jeffrey Epstein says, I sent a request. Does she want to come out to Paris on Sunday?
This is so strange because I distinctly remember Kash Patel saying there were no co-conspirators, that he sort of managed this shit by himself. And he wouldn't lie about it. Kash Patel's like a really trustworthy guy. So I'm just trying to understand how.
He says, I will invite to come. And this is basically how it worked. Daniel Syed flew around the world looking for women, sending photos to Jeffrey Epstein, who then would get a copy of their passports and bring him to the States. Here's an example of this. Daniel Syed brings him a girl. They didn't redact this name, but I'm going to do it. He says, very nice, easygoing, dream to work in the United States or visit the United States working as a model in Dubai. He asks age. Daniel says 22 or 23. I forgot to ask her. She looks younger. I have her number if you want to call her. She was going to send this evening. And this happens over and over. At one point, he talks about a Thai actress. Jeffrey Epstein says he can see her on Wednesday, and then he complains that she wants to meet in a restaurant. I don't do that in New York, and then says she didn't even respond. Not nice. The point is, a lot of these girls were looking to come to the United States for one reason or another, for some kind of dream. They would ask for passports or visas, and then ultimately get sent here by this network of people who would later be accused of trafficking or other abuses. Now, to be clear, there have not been charges against Daniel Syed, and the government, remember, says they have no evidence to go even predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties. So it's a little bit bizarre to be reading about this scouting operation for Jeffrey Epstein, the way he recruited girls, and then be told, yeah, nothing to see here. Yeah, one of the scouts was like this, like, who himself in jail. But no, there's no one else here, even though there's definitely guys floating around. Even though we literally have redacted defendants in our old draft of an indictment. We have nothing to do. We can't possibly imagine doing anything. And that brings me to one of the frustrating parts of these whole files is the redactions. I mean, I know I've been over this, but it's a different thing. In the past, the files were sort of overly redacted to protect people. The problem this time is not only are a lot of people still being protected, like literally the names of the people they were going to charge, you couldn't argue those are victims, but the work was just done so sloppy that oftentimes you'll find that the DOJ has uploaded 2 documents that are functionally identical, and they redacted one but not the other, letting you see what's ultimately behind the mask, which is dumb because sometimes the thing they're redacting is Jeffrey Epstein's name, or other times it's somebody who clearly is not a victim because then.
Dude, redacting Jeffrey Epstein in the Jeffrey Epstein Files is very funny. It's just cosmically funny. Got to make sure that
you see the non-redacted copy and you're like, yeah, that's
Jeffrey Epstein's good name.
Clearly not a victim. So it's a little strange what they seem to have done here. Let me give you a for instance. So we have this message from somebody whose name is blacked out, and we see participants, and then we see Jeffrey Epstein is involved, right? And it says, we need to work around
Jeffrey Epstein iTunes at gmail.com. Holy fuck, dude. That's his email?
Around your 38, we need to push back on the lies, then crush the pedo trafficking narrative, then rebuild your image as a philanthropist. Now, I want to know who's doing that. Who's trying to rebuild Jeffrey Epstein's image, right? Well, we go ahead, we scroll down, and we see that Jeffrey Epstein sends something. He says, in any bar where drinking age is 18, and you see the participant is once again blacked out. But underneath it, in a separate file, we see Steve Bannon, a famous political figure, is in here, and he's saying the same thing. He says, first, we need to push back on the lies, then crush the trafficking narrative, then rebuild your image as a philanthropist. Guys, why did you censor out his name? Or, like, why was that censored at all? I don't understand. And I certainly don't understand why Jeffrey Epstein's name in this one is censored. So, Jeffrey's not censored in this one, but Bannon is. And then Bannon's not censored in this one, and Epstein is. And sometimes this creates the bizarre impression that they are censoring for victim names or for some like kind of victim status or for some reason. And then you see the other file and you're like, wait, why did you do this? It's just very poorly done throughout. That's just something I wanted to comment on.
Honestly, I thank God that it was poorly done. Every aspect of this has been so poorly done that it's allowed people online to get more of the story. It is actually incredibly convenient and lucky that millions of files had to be released on short notice, and they could only redact so much, and they had to get, overtime people to come in and try to do it, and because it is allowing the anger to build on the story.
Is not only did they once again not fully redact things because they were sloppy, but also like victims' names got stuck in this, like girls' names appear sometimes, and like I'm not sure, are they supposed to be redacted? Because they're redacted over here, they're not over here. I can kind of figure out who it is. It's just kind of a mess. I needed to point that out. Other times we have things like this, like Brock Pierce, a co-founder of Tether, also known as the biggest stable coin in the world. He sent a message to Jeffrey Epstein with the subject line Anastasia, and then it's just a bunch of redacted stuff with a few untitled JPEGs in here. And so, you're thinking to yourself, what is this? Is he sending some illicit media? Like, what is this? Well, then we have this page where it wasn't redacted. I put that little dark square that I didn't know if this should have been redacted or not. But it's like a bunch of JPEGs. Now, does that contain victims? Is Brock Pierce sending photos of victims? I don't know because of the way the government did this. But underneath, it says, the Ukraine is now my favorite country, smiley face, Brock Pierce, with the subject line Anastasia.
So someone, what is it called? Gmail or whatever? People seen this? Yeah, somebody made this, but it's not updated with all the new files yet. They made this where you can just literally scroll through Jeffrey Epstein's emails like it's a Gmail account. It's actually awesome. Whatever tech person did this, it's a great way to make this shit understandable and discoverable for regular people. You can even search. I searched Elon earlier to check it out. But one thing I noticed when I was reading through some of these today to try and get a better idea is how often they use fucking smiley faces. The amount of fucking smiley faces is crazy. This kind of smiley face. It's like very creepy. It's not a normal thing in emails for fucking people in their 50s to be sitting around. It's all over. All right, I'll go back.
I don't know what to make of that. I'm just saying the redactions, like the way they did this is not good. But now let's return to Steve Bannon and his we're going to crush the trafficking narrative. Because this guy, oh boy, has been revealed in the files to being like Jeffrey's right-hand PR man. I mean, this guy was filming basically a documentary about Jeffrey Epstein in order to rehabilitate his image. And some of it has actually leaked to the public. It's been interesting to watch how that's been received. But the funny thing is that originally Jeffrey Epstein's plan was to just do a YouTube video, like an apology.
Okay, so I saw a bit of this documentary. I did see a bit of this documentary, the Steve Bannon. I just realized what that's for. I saw a clip of Steve Bannon interviewing Jeffrey Epstein in an attempt to rehabilitate him. None of this is cosmic. This is cosmically funny, not literally funny. But there's a part of it where Jeffrey Epstein starts talking about the benefits of MMT, modern monetary theory. And I just want to say, next time some fucking modern monetary theory guy gets in my fucking chat, I'm going to link you Jeffrey Epstein's hardcore defense. Okay? That's what you can take that. Okay? You can run with that. That'll be your guy. And I'm happy to let that run. It was a small part of the thing, but it cracked me up.
Like a old school 2016, turn on the camera for authenticity and saying, he says, do you think I can do my own video interview and upload it to YouTube? No sandbagging, interview format, or like a diary piece. Steve Bannon says, if you do an interview, it can't be like Johnny does a YouTube. It has to be amazingly professional and perfectly cut. Then Jeffrey Epstein responds, Woody, we assume Woody Allen, because they were close, said he would help.
I'm sorry, but the Jeffrey Epstein I'm not a pedophile apology video edited by Woody Allen was their big plan? That was the big comeback plan? The opening fucking title card would make everyone bust out laughing. I'm an innocent man, the Jeffrey Epstein story, edited by Woody Allen. What the fuck? God, these guys are such fucking clowns.
Edit. Not sure how to stage, what points to make, but better than trying to do an interview that I have no experience doing. Goal is to humanize the monster.
Humanize.
Anything written carries little weight, to which Steve Bannon replies, yes, Jeffrey Epstein. Should it be an interview format, interviewed by me? They start talking about, like, how do we do this? Humor, apology, how did I get rich? Question mark topics. Their brainstorming, how do we trick the public into seeing me as more than a monster? Now, funny enough, right before this, Jeffrey Epstein asks about a dinner with Woody, and then he says, or too many pedos in one place. And you gotta love the self-awareness there. Now, dude, I don't know what he meant by that, to be clear. I'm not making that accusation against Woody Allen. We'll talk about him in a
That should have been the name of the documentary, bro. Too many pedos in one place. The Jeffrey Epstein story.
A second. That's Jeffrey Epstein saying that. I think what's interesting to point out, though, is how all these rich and powerful people are circling the wagons to try to protect Jeffrey Epstein's reputation, right? This is a guy who at this point has been known for years to have pled guilty to these 2008 charges. This was an open secret. And so Steve Bannon goes along though anyways, and he films this documentary. Now what's interesting is he starts talking about the documentary and he starts saying, I'm watching our second hour now. Guys were blown away. I didn't think it was as strong at the time, but I was wrong. Need huge part about threat of AI versus reality, threat of climate change. And this is where the notes start going back and forth of how can we get you to think of other things? So part of the conceit of this big...
It's funny because I disagree with Bannon's assessment. I haven't watched the full thing, but I was skipping around it. I think Jeffrey Epstein's right where he said this. I was a little all over the place. It really just sounded like he was rambling. In fact, if you watch it, it sounds like... I'm talking about this interview. The takeaway that I got from it is that he was just trying to say things that sounded smart. It's like literally if you just, yeah, here it is. Okay, here it is. He's like just jumping around and saying like
of derivatives. It was really
but it's like it's really buzzwordy, and when you actually like it actually made me I never thought Jeffrey Epstein was fucking Einstein, but I actually came away thinking he was actually kind of dumb. Like I actually got the sense he's more of a con man. I thought he was like, he kind of knew his shit when it came to finance, but actually he doesn't really. Like he starts talking about fractional reserve banking, which I do know about, and his take on it is like so surface level, and he throws it in like in the middle of a topic that was unrelated. Like he's just trying to say something that he knows the buzzword for, and it's like fractional reserve banking. But so honestly, it was an interesting takeaway that he's really like, more of a con man than I thought.
Threat of climate change. And this is where the notes start going back and forth of how can we get you to think of other things? So part of the conceit of this big interview of Jeffrey Epstein was to try to humanize him and actually present him as this genius, everyman, quirky guy with a few flaws, right? They knew they couldn't run away from the crimes. To quote, in Bannon's words, yes, 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 of course, but we must counter rapists who traffics in female children to be by world's most powerful, richest men. That can't be redeemed. Can't redeem the unredeemable. You are a lot of things, which we will show, but you are not that. Bannon is aware that, like, they can't fully embrace the Epstein thing. They have to kind of make it about more than that. And if you see the YouTube clip going around, that's what that is. And it's been so interesting to watch the reaction, because you see, even for people who've been prepped with the idea that this is basically propaganda, some of them still fall for it. They post things like, you know, oh, bro is casually confirming the world's conspiracies because he's talking about 2008. But guys, that's the whole deception. They're like trying to be like, hey, this guy, this horrible monster, he's going to tell you this.
That is just proof to me of how stupid what he's saying was, that YouTube commenters thought it was smart. Because low-key, if you just want, it's not smart at all, bro. There's like no, it's shallow as a fucking puddle, I promise you. None of the he said was like, at all. I mean, I haven't watched the whole damn thing, so I guess there's more I can watch, but I got the opposite impression, bro.
Secrets of the Inside Club. So you think more, that's the whole thing. That's how they're getting away with this. It's not some kind of, oh, he happened to want to talk about this. This is all premeditated. This has gone through revisions. They even called Jeffrey Epstein the smartest guy in the room.
Look, you're the smartest guy in the room, right? You know that.
It's honestly ridiculous anyone believes the false conceit of, you're obviously the smartest man in the room. You could tell us the world's secrets. I mean, this guy, honestly, he talks about some of his engagements, like with the Rockefeller board, and he tries to say that owning a calculator is why he got that.
It was very advanced in those days to have a Texas Instrument calculator, where it could, by putting in the numbers, it would multiply for you to do square roots. And that was the first thing. Everyone who had a calculator was already advanced on Wall Street. The most important parts of business were really now going to calculations. Places like Rockefeller needed someone to say, look, we're entering a different world where numbers and the numbers of companies, portfolio management was going to be balanced. It was going to be statistical. Jeffrey, could you come on the board, potentially sit on the finance committee?
So we're honestly supposed to believe that Jeffrey Epstein got onto this prestigious Rockefeller board because he had a calculator, but also that he's the smartest guy in the room, the smartest man on Wall Street. And let's not talk about those horrific crimes he committed, because, you know, he's not really such a bad guy after all. But it wasn't just Steve Bannon that was trying to humanize or giving advice on how to humanize Epstein. It was also Richard Branson, the famous billionaire. He was caught emailing Jeffrey Epstein saying, "Dear Jeffrey, it was really nice seeing you yesterday. The boys in water sports can't stop speaking about it. Anytime you are in the area, would love to see you, as long as you bring your harem." I don't know, that's not that ambiguous, guys. I think we can imagine what that means. But anyways, he says, one, I think if Bill Gates was willing to say that you've been a brilliant advisor to him, that you slipped up many years ago by sleeping with a 17-and-a-half-year-old and were punished for it, that you've more than learned your lesson and have done nothing that's against the law since. And yes, as a single man, you have a penchant for women, but there's nothing wrong with that. Anyway, something along those lines. He's giving him PR advice. How to get your reputation back. Hey, Jeffrey, privately, I loved you. You can come back anytime with your harem. Jeffrey Epstein responds, nice seeing you. Thanks for your hospitality. I appreciate your public relations thoughts. Now, according to the New York Times, a Branson representative said the two had a business meeting and stressed the women were adults and had not attended the meeting. All above board. That's what everyone says, by the way. Remember what Elon Musk said, right? That's the playbook. Admit nothing, deny everything. Speaking of, remember Howard Lutnick, who we showed on video saying that he had never seen Epstein since 2005.
So I was never in the room with him socially, for business, or for even philanthropy. If that guy was there, I wasn't going because he's gross.
Although also calling him the greatest blackmailer ever.
This guy was the greatest blackmailer ever.
Well, also according to the Times, Lutnick said he spent zero time with him, even though there are emails basically to the contrary, where Epstein is saying, nice seeing you after the conviction. I mean, these people, not only are they lying, they won't even admit when they've been caught lying. But now let's talk about Prince Andrew, too, who was caught lying over a woman at some kind of a party. I mean, just not a good, this is not doing you any favors, you know. I know Prince Andrew soon will probably be on the comeback tour. It's going to be a bunch of highly paid PR execs. Maybe Steve Bannon can jump in, shoot another 5-hour podcast trying to rehabilitate him. Like, Prince Andrew, what's the secret behind the royal family?
Look, you're the smartest guy in the room.
But again, has he admitted anything? Has he denied everything? Now, we should also probably talk about Noam Chomsky as well, the guy behind the book Manufacturing Consent, which in hindsight, maybe we should have suspected something. But either way, he also sends some reputational advice to his buddy Jeffrey Epstein. He says, I watched the horrible way you've been treated by the press and public. It's painful to say, but I think the best way to proceed is to ignore it. When the vultures dearly want is a public response, which then provides a public opening. In general, I think it's best not to react unless directly questioned, particularly in the current mood. That's the best advice I can think of. Noam. Now, he sends that to Matthew Hiltzik of Hiltzik Strategies, who is a also famous PR guy, I guess, trying to help Epstein, I assume, who responds, I think that is wise. Now, later talking with Bannon, Epstein loops in Hiltzik again. He says, Matt Hiltzik thought your idea was epic. Hypocrisy of the liberal left. And he says, yep, he would confidentially like to...
Hey, we didn't talk about, remind me after this video that we should talk about SBF. That reminds me about SBF.
Sit and help if you like. This is Matthew Hiltzik. You know, a lot of powerful people basically were bending over backwards, left, right, center, trying to rehabilitate this guy's image. And the question is, why? Why were all these guys so interested in their precious Jeffrey Epstein if they had no involvement? I mean, that's the part I can't figure out it. Because all of them deny it. All of them don't admit anything. And so what exactly is the problem? But now it's time to talk about Elon Musk's brother, Kimball Musk. He was also in the files. Jeffrey was copied on an email talking about Kimball's 40th birthday, where the password to the secret party was P Riot. And then in all caps, Boris, the sender of this email, says, I am not joking about the password. This was in 2012 in September. Now that's important because a little bit later, Kimball Musk is emailing Boris Nikolic and Jeffrey Epstein, and he's talking to them about being connected with some redacted name and saying, I believe you both played a role, whatever that means. Now, whether this was at the party or, you know, right after their meeting in October, I don't know. But what's interesting is Boris responds and says, Kimball, just FYI, you better be nice to redacted. Jeffrey goes crazy when someone mistreats his girls/friends, so better be very nice to her. Kimball Musk responds, message received.
Smiley face, winky face in his thing, and then responded.
Girls/friends, so better be very nice to her. Kimball Musk
with another fucking winky face. These guys are...
Responds, message received, wide and clear. Then he says, seriously, I'm very happy with my time so far with Jennifer. She's great. Now, again, was that supposed to be a redacted name we just read? Like, I don't know. They've been redacting it in earlier emails. Then all of a sudden you just get Jennifer. I can't really figure that out. But what I can figure out is that a little while later, a few days later, Jeffrey Epstein gets an email. Now, we know Kimball credits the meetup and says Boris and Epstein were responsible in some way for this. But now Jeffrey Epstein's being emailed about Jen's schedule. Is that Jennifer? I mean, it seems like it because Jen's schedule for the rest of the year, and it seems like the assistant has copy and pasted Jen's response because she says, Sue, these would be dates in November, and then starts saying, you know,
I'm thinking this guy might be a sex
she can go
trafficker.
to New York. She says the 29th to the 7th, she's free. Kimball to New York. Then she says, Kimball, Jen, London. Kimball, Jen, London to Morocco, ? Then she has a break, and then it's Jen, Kimball, St. Bart's, assuming we're not sick of each other by the end of November. Now, I can't figure out why is she running this schedule about when she's hanging out with Kimball, who Jeffrey set her up with. Like, why is she running this by Elon Musk? To be clear, I don't know. You know, there could be, I guess, innocent explanations for this. Maybe.
Yeah, I mean, maybe, right? But can we be real at this point, bro? Can we be real that if someone is emailing their schedule to fucking Jeffrey Epstein, that who set you up?
I don't know. But all I see are constant, powerful people either being introed to girls, talking about the harem, talking about beautiful ladies, and the FBI, they can't figure it out. They have no evidence to even investigate third parties.
It's not a crime to party
I
with
guess
Jeffrey
because
Epstein.
they're rich and powerful. Around the world, we're seeing resignations. We're seeing people lose their status. But here in the United States, we've got like multiple presidents in the files. We got the world's richest man in the files, several of the world's richest men in the files, and we just can't drum up any kind of evidence. It's just incredible to me. Now, I also want to talk about another rich, and powerful person, and that is Peter Attia. He's a podcast bro. He's a longevity expert. And actually, funny enough, I read his book. And that's going to come into play here in a second because, oh boy, did I get some additional context. But let's start here with something that Peter Attia sent Jeffrey Epstein. He says, subject, got a fresh shipment. And then Epstein responds, me too. And there's a completely redacted image. Is that a girl? Is this bad redactions? You know, we don't know, although we'll find out in a second because later Peter responded to this. But Peter says, please tell me you found that picture online. Jeffrey responds, got a fresh shipment. Afraid not. Peter responds, you know the biggest problem with becoming friends with you. The life you lead is so outrageous, yet I can't tell a soul. Why, Peter? Why can't you tell a soul? Why don't you tell us now? Now that it's all out in the open, why don't you tell us why you can't tell a soul the secrets or the life that Epstein...
By the way, this is all in 2015. All these emails are like years after conviction and some jail time for being a pedophile, like convicted. So it's okay, but he's changed. He went to prison. And in 2015, you're like, you know, the biggest problem with becoming friends with you?
Epstein leads. And then we get another redacted photo, right? And then some more images. And Peter says, please tell me that's not where you actually are. And Jeffrey says, you can see the gym in the middle, just me and 4. And Peter says, I think you might have a more interesting life than the Dos Equis guy. Is this off the coast of France? No, it's my island in the Caribbean near St. Thomas. If you go to the Google Earth and type in Little St. James. Beautiful. Isn't that nice? Behind closed doors, it's beautiful. In public, you know, we'll hear about what a monster this guy is, right? But behind closed doors, when nobody's watching, oh, it's beautiful. There's some other stuff Peter Attia said, which I'm not going to get into. I don't think it's very, appropriate for medical professionals to be saying such things. But, this wasn't all business, right? This wasn't just doctor-patient kind of stuff. There's a lot of guy talk, a lot of banter between the fellas about ladies. And maybe that's why Peter Attia says that hopefully Jeffrey Epstein is in town when I'm back in 2 weeks. I go into Jeffrey Epstein withdrawal.
It's so fucking crazy. The stark contrast between the public and private lives of these people. They're always like, this guy, I knew he was a creep from minute one. Could not stand to be in a room with him. And then the emails are always like, I need you in my life, Jeff. Jeff, I want to spend every minute with you. I have Jeffrey Epstein withdrawal. You're heroin in my veins, Jeff. That would be, dude, this would be an embarrassing thing to say to somebody if there was no crimes at all. This would be an embarrassing thing for Peter Attia to say to some other fucking finance dude he just met if there were no crimes at all. Let alone he's a convicted sex trafficker.
When I don't see him. So guys, these two were close. I mean, apparently so close that, Peter Attia goes into withdrawal.
Like, Stan's my best friend, right? If someone had an email come out where I said, Stans, I need to hang out with you, I get Stan's withdrawal. Like, there'd be nothing wrong with it. The Stans isn't a bad guy, but it'd be like, damn, that's embarrassing. What a fucking crazy thing to write. The more I think about it, the more it's like, how the fuck did the guy write that?
When he doesn't see him. Peter Attia says, are you on island? Jeffrey Epstein says, P Beach, probably Palm Beach. And he says, what do you do when you get there? Jeffrey Epstein, guess. Peter Attia, besides that, I mean, they're not even trying to hide it, guys. This is barely code at this point. What do you do? Guess. Well, besides that, Jeffrey, we know what you do, right? So it's so funny that the FBI's like, we don't know. We can't tell what's out there. We have no evidence, right? No evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties and then proceed to dump on us a ton of evidence, at least to investigate, right? I'm not saying these people are guilty. Obviously, all of them deny, don't admit, blame other people, say other people are responsible for everything. So that is taken as a given. I am not accusing anyone here. I'm just saying, seems like we got a few leads here, fellas. Some people to look at. Now, I want to address the fact that Peter Attia has actually responded to this. this whole debacle. He says the following email is what I sent my team last night. I sent a similar version to my patients as well. You put your trust, your credibility, your hard work, what we built together, and I take that responsibility seriously. You deserve a complete and honest account of what did and did not happen. I apologize. I did not get this out sooner. I wanted to be thorough. He says, I was not involved in any criminal activity. My interactions had nothing to do with his abuse or exploitation of anyone. I was never on his plane, never on his island, never present at any parties. That said, I apologize and regret putting myself in a position where emails, some of them embarrassing, tasteless, and indefensible, are now public. So it's this apology. You know, he addresses some of the things, and he says that some of it's just banter, right? Like I said, it's just guy talk, whatever that means. He claims that his got a fresh shipment was in reference to a photograph of bottles of metformin, and then Jeffrey responded with a photograph of an adult woman. I responded with crude, tasteless banter. He says one line in that exchange about his life being outrageous and me not being able to tell anyone is being interpreted as awareness of wrongdoing. That's not how I meant it at all. What I was referring to poorly and flippantly was the discretion commanded by those socials and professional circles. The idea you don't talk about who you meet. I don't know, Peter. This seems like revisionist history a little bit. I mean, personally, to me, as I'm viewing this,
Did he respond to the part where he said,
just from the outsider perspective? Now, Peter says he did ask Jeffrey about his 2008 conviction, because all this happened afterwards, right? He characterized it as prostitution-related charges. In 2018, I learned that this was grossly minimized. I was incredibly naive to believe him, and then later explains that in 2018, November, he read the Miami Herald investigative article, told him he needed to accept responsibility for what he did, and said he even asked Epstein to provide therapy to Epstein's victims, which is an interesting approach to have here. Now, the funny thing is, there are some more emails between Peter Attia that we need to read, because remember that he said he read this 2018 article from the Miami Herald. I believe it's this one by Julia K. Brown in November 28th. It's about Jeffrey Epstein assembling a large cult-like network of underage girls. But in December, Peter Attia says, home is very good, work stressful, making some changes. He asks him, what's the fallout from the recent story? Apparently talking about the Miami Herald. Now, maybe I just didn't see the emails, that where he was demanding accountability. I don't know what that's about. But Jeffrey Epstein says, same as usual, just tougher. Peter Attia says legally any change. Jeffrey Epstein, 0.
Interesting.
So,
where's the email?
I don't know. Maybe.
Where's the email on record where you said, hey, Jeffrey, you need to get your shit together. You need to get these women therapy. You need to apologize. That's what you're saying you did. But that part's not in the email. That part you must have just said in person, while over text you were saying, damn, bro, sucks.
You gotta provide therapy to, these victims happened. I haven't seen it yet. I definitely could see it, but it's just kind of shocking. I just kind of don't buy it. Like the whole, is there any change legally? That more sounds like you're covering yourself. I mean, just to be honest. But maybe I could look past all of that if not for the thing we're about to see, which just in my mind is maybe the worst thing I've seen in the files. Not for its, explicitness, the amount of simping that people did for.
What I think is so incredible is how Obama thought to include all these little side stories that are kind of unrelated to Republicans and Trump, just to make the files seem more credible. That was fucking smart. Because if he had just included the Trump parts, it would have seemed like, oh, that's obviously an Obama hoax. But he did a whole world building. He has this Peter Attia stuff. He pulled it all together. He's a fucking mastermind, bro. You can't, hate him for the tan suit. I do. Don't get me wrong. You have to give him credit. He's a damn hard worker.
Jeffrey Epstein. Now they all say, oh, it was a personal mistake, blah, blah, blah. I regret it. I didn't look into it enough. But the level is just, you've never seen anything like it. So remember I said I read a book by Peter Attia. It was called Outlive, and he's supposed to be this doctor who knows a lot about longevity. So he writes it, and I picked it up.
Wait. Loki, I might have this book. No, it's called Outlive. Oh, yeah. Hondo P have this book. This is a classic airport longevity book. Yeah, this is all about the main takeaways I remember from this book are, this is gonna sound crazy. To live longer, you should exercise, sleep right, and eat well. That's what this book says. I'm not kidding. There's a chapter called exercise. There's a chapter called sleep. This is the big take. Peter Attia really fucking, say what you will about his clear connection to pedophilia, but oh, I didn't get to the last chapter. This is what I should have seen. The last chapter says, after you're done eating right, sleeping, and exercising, make sure to befriend a pedophile and then cover for them at any time. Chapter 12. That's probably why I'm fucking aging so badly.
Because at the rate we're getting rid of these crimes, I need to live forever in order to try to stop some of these scams. But as I pick up this book, and one of the things in the book is Peter Attia kind of reflecting internally about how he's kind of been a bit, and I'm paraphrasing here, but a bit of a psycho in his life, and he needed to focus on family stuff. And so he kind of, it's almost a confessional of some embarrassing things in his life. And honestly, it comes off as very vulnerable, very self-reflective. You know, he's this doctor telling other people what to do, but he's not a very good patient. That's kind of how it comes off. And one of the stories is awful. I won't go too much into it, but basically his son has this horrible medical emergency. It's described in this book like this. A few months ago, Tuesday, July 11th, 2017, that date is important. At 5:45 to be exact, I received a call from Jill, my wife. She was in an ambulance with our infant son. Now, again, I'm not going to get into the details here because, it's tragic and I'm not trying to bring that into it. What is relevant is that Peter Attia talks about how he stayed in New York and didn't show up because he was, quote, busy with his important work. Even today, just thinking about what happened, I feel nauseous about my behavior. I can't believe I did that to my family. Now, at the time I read that and I was like, well, it's at least as good that you self-reflected on that. It's horrible, but, yeah, you were a bit of a psycho. But what's crazy, now we find out some of the important work, it's a little unclear, but some of the important work may have been Jeffrey Epstein, which is just...
fuck, dude.
Oh, it's so dark to imagine. Remember, he says July 11th, 2017 is when this all happened. And then he says he did not come home to San Diego until Friday the following week, 10 days later. So July 11th, 2017.
His son was in the hospital and he spent 10 days with Jeffrey Epstein?
2 days after this happens, he's talking to Jeffrey Epstein. And they seem to be coordinating about something. Sure, what time? Jeffrey Epstein, 9:30. Peter Attia responds, sure, I can come earlier. Also, if you have a hard stop at 10, let me know. You're hanging out with Jeffrey? I don't even know what to say. This is out of pocket.
He's got withdrawal, like you said.
There's no explanation for this. I didn't see this in the response from Peter. Maybe he thinks he addresses it.
I'm going to make a wide-ranging statement.
I didn't see it admitted in the response. Oh,
I'm making a wide-ranging statement. I think everyone who has a watch like this is a pedophile. I'm going to say it. This is one of those like $100,000 fucking, I think this is a pedophile watch, bro. I think your brain has to be broken in a way. These Richard Mille cost more than a car type watches. I think it's fucking, LeBron has one. All right, everybody but LeBron. Don't you dare come at King James, okay? And I don't think LeBron would wear this type of watch. Let me see LeBron watch. No, his watches are classier, bro. He's got some classy watches. This is a classy watch. You tell me King James? That's a man who has an adult wife that he's faithful to. XQC said this is a peasant's watch.
There's no explanation for this. I didn't see this in the response from Peter. Maybe he thinks he addresses it because he already admitted that was like scummy. But that is just, there's a reason that didn't make it in the book, is what I'm trying to say. I didn't see that in the book when I read it. I didn't see, I was actually, one of the things I needed to do, my important work was seeing or talking to Jeffrey Epstein. Isn't that weird? Like that's the simping that I'm talking about, is these people love this guy, or that's how it seems to me. Like, what are all these rich and powerful people doing, protecting him, missing emergencies for Jeffrey, fawning over Jeffrey, asking for Jeffrey's hair?
How is Diddy not in the files? It's not like every pedophile or sex pest in the world had to go through Jeffrey Epstein. He's not the one-stop shop, dude. Diddy ran his own shit. Okay? There's Diddy files. Diddy has his own files.
Saying their biggest problem is the life they lead is so outrageous they can't tell. So, I mean, what is going on here? And is it true they all...
It was East Coast versus West Coast, like fucking rap feuds? They're both East Coast.
Didn't know, right? Because, I'm reading these documents, and it's hard to say who exactly knew what, when, but
Another knock on the East Coast, by the way. Feels like, you know what I'm saying? Epstein and Diddy and Squeaks. I don't know, bro. I don't know. And Trump, Diddy, Squeaks, Epstein versus what? Tupac?
I don't believe, remember, they're all denying it. I don't believe nobody knew, right? Clearly, some people knew what was going on. And there's all this kind of coded language in the files where they talk about this stuff almost in like a nudge kind of way. I mean, here's some Woody Allen stuff. He was in the files. He says his business office, if you can make out the check to me, it looks very bad because then it looks like a gift to me. He says that to Epstein. He says, I don't want to be one of your women, or should I say, girls. And what's that? Oh, how do we... Come on, guys. Woody says, I would be much more expensive than your girls. You wouldn't be able to afford me. Jeffrey responds, yes, the price to pay would be too high. Woody says, this will be a beautiful friendship. And then Jeffrey says, as long as I follow orders, smiley face. Woody Allen sends a message saying Woody says the exact same thing, but in a dirtier way. Jeffrey responds, what did he say? Woody Allen, are you kidding? I can't put it in writing. I mean, no evidence, no evidence. How? Come on. I think I see a little bit of evidence. I'm squinting. But I think I can see a little bit of evidence. And that was the guy who's going to direct your comeback film? Like Jeffrey Epstein right here, where he's talking to a guy. He says, Paris with Woody. And the person responds, for le pedophile convention. And Jeffrey says, I think pedophile is the plural. I mean, no evidence. I mean, is that no evidence? It's nothing. We don't even want to question these people. There's no investigations going on. So, yeah, it's honestly really sad to see how, look, I'm not saying people around the world are having crazy consequences, but a few people are resigning, thank goodness. A few people are at least facing a little bit of scrutiny, but here Elon Musk lays out the playbook, apparently for our guys. We admit nothing, we deny everything, and we blame others. We just push the spotlight onto other people.
Doing, bro. It's
and
crazy.
Unfortunately, that's what you've seen the whole time from all the people in the files. All of them say, oh, I was so happy these files came out. It's about shining accountability and justice for the victims, but I had nothing to do with it. Okay, so then where's the justice for the victims? So nobody, all of you say somebody else had something to do with it, but everybody says nobody had anything to do with it. The FBI says they don't have any other, investigations,
there's
any
no
other kind
walks.
of leads, despite the fact we have one of the procurers of the women just walking free, apparently, like no charges against him. Have we investigated him? I mean, it's just shocking how much the Epstein files show the powerful, how they protect their own, how so many of them knew what was going on to the extent they found out later. A lot of them tried to protect Epstein, like literally make PR campaigns for his reputation. And this is a dark look at the state of the world, honestly, because Epstein happened a while ago, but the reason everyone cares is because there's other Epsteins around, right? There's other people evading accountability.
I'm pretty sure, based on what Kash Patel said, that after Epstein died in prison, of suicide, of course, that was it. Pedophilia was beaten. It was like a smallpox. Like, it's just over. They got him. He was the one guy. They've been hunting him down. They finally got him. And now powerful people have, there's no way to do it. They can't, they are back within the confines of the law. And
all the time. There's other people that this band of billionaires and power brokers and PR people, even lawmakers, they circle the wagons and protect their own to the point you can never get accountability for anything. So anyway, that's it. It's a hard look at the Epstein files, but it's one we needed to do. But I want to make the disclaimer once again that, look, I've tried to read people's individual denials where I could, but you should just assume everyone that we are talking about firmly denies any kind of criminal wrongdoing. They deny anything untowards about any kind of minors. And given the fact that our government doesn't seem to want to investigate anyone, I would just assume everybody here is completely clear. And so I want to get all those caveats in here because we are talking about some very powerful people with enormous means. And I don't want to be seen as I'm saying stuff. I'm reading the files. I'm giving my personal opinion. But ultimately, this is an indictment of our FBI and the people in power. And that's what I think the Epstein Files have really shown us. This has been a long road. Can you believe it all started over here? And we have come all this way with all these files coming out. And it seems like the question is on the table. Are there going to be consequences?
Is there any chance that any of these individuals who partied with Epstein and engaged in, relations with minors will be prosecuted?
Well,
Any
look,
chance?
I'll never say no, and we will always investigate any evidence of misconduct. But as you know, it is not a crime to party with Mr. Epstein. And so as horrible as it's not a crime to email with Mr. Epstein. And some of these men may have done horrible things. And if we have evidence that allows us to prosecute them, you better believe we will. But it's also the kind of thing that the American people need to understand, that it isn't a crime to party with Mr. Epstein. It isn't a crime to have
Didn't look like that's all that was going on some of those photos.
Dude, that's what the American people need to understand. The whole takeaway from this story, if the one thing America needs to walk away with is that it's not a crime to party with Epstein. What a fucking joke, dude. Thank you, fucking Deputy AG Todd Blanche. You're doing the Lord's work.